Thank you, everybody, and welcome back again to Off Base Sports Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jason Critchlow, and once again, I'm joined by
Todd.
Please subscribe, rate, review on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, CastBox, Satchel, just about anywhere you can find podcasts. We're there. Also, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, Instagram. We're there. If we can be found, we can be found. Also, you can check us out on Spotify and follow us there. And I know I've taken a couple weeks off. The holidays, I wasn't feeling well. And I'm going to try and get back on a pattern where I do these on Mondays. Release them on Mondays because I'm off 2 Sundays a month. I close one Sunday, 8 to 5. And the one Sunday that I close at work, then I'm off the following Monday. So should be a more followable schedule. We'll see. Again, it's free content. You guys don't pay for it, so get it when you get it. I want to do better. That'll be my resolution for the new year, is try to get one of these out every week. But I'll also have some other things going on in my life that will take up considerable time from now through at least May anyways. So we'll see how that goes.
And by the way, if you would like to pay Jason for any of this, you can just send him an email or something, and he will set up a PayPal account, and you can send him money right that way.
Oh yeah. I mean, I will always accept all kinds of donations in the form of cash, charge, or full frontal nudity. You didn't get that. That went right over Todd's head. National Lampoon's Van Wilder, man.
I got that, but you better clarify that you only want full frontal nudity from females.
Hey, not my world to discriminate. Again, quoting a movie line. Second, not discriminating. Go nuts. I am not here to judge anybody. But to start things off a little bit differently for this episode, we initially were going to do a top 5 baseball movies. I started putting together a top 5 list and realized I was going to have like 15 honorable mentions, so we bumped it up to a top 10. So I'm going to let Todd go first. We're going to work our way from number 10 to number 1, and we'll go from there.
All right. My number 10, Rookie of the Year.
Not a bad movie. On my honorable mention list. Didn't quite make the cut. I know as a Cubs fan it probably should make the top 10, but you're not going to win them all. So, I mean, it's a good flick. If it kind of... Again, I don't know how you picked yours, but mine were, okay, these are the movies. If I had to pick a baseball movie to watch today, what would it be? And I went in basically descending order, and I had to keep revising them. So, yeah, no, Rookie of the Year is a perfectly fine movie. Like I said, it was on the very first one on my honorable mention list. Not that my honorable mention are in any particular order. I didn't go through and reorganize them, other than maybe I took one from the top 10 and moved it to the honorable mention when I realized, you know what? Nah, I'm going to put this up there. So, not a bad flick. If you haven't seen it, it's a Little League baseball player, hurts his shoulder. In the process, it tightens up, and now all of a sudden he has a rocket for a fastball. And lo and behold, he's out in the watching the Cubs game in the bleachers. The opposing team hits a home run, as Cubs are wont to do. He throws it back into the crowd. But, of course, now that's when he discovers that his arm has suddenly become a rocket cannon. And he just fires it so fast that they then sign him to the Cubs, and he helps lead them to a World Series. I'm not going to do any more than that.
Well, yeah, you got the funniest part right there is the catcher still tries tagging the guy out at home plate, even though the ball cleared.
Fair enough. My number 10, very, very different. I went with 8 Men Out.
Okay.
For me, that was the one that probably bounced the most around the list onto where I would watch it. Again, if you don't know, it's about the Black Sox scandal. Obviously changed up, not for movie purposes, not very historically accurate. I wouldn't say not very. I mean, it was pretty historically accurate. There were some things that they, obviously changed, like time frames, like the players didn't get suspended almost right before the next season and things like that. Didn't quite happen that fast, but that was for purposes of a movie and telling a story. But I think that's always going to be in my baseball top 10.
Let Shaluce Joe in.
I mean, I'm all for letting almost everybody into the Hall of Fame that deserves it. And that list has obviously changed this year with us now having a even more watered down version of the original Veterans Committee that let Harold fucking Baines in the Hall of Fame. The whole purpose of a Hall of Fame is to be able to tell the history of your sport. I can tell the history of the sport without Harold fucking Baines. And I have Cubs, and as a Cubs fan, I should advocate for Lee Smith. No, Lee Smith's not a Hall of Famer either. Neither of those guys were Hall of Fame omissions. Ron Santo was probably, was a Hall of Fame omission.
Right.
But those two, sorry, no. No, you weren't. So they need to go back and revisit that. Number 9?
Moneyball.
Got that at number 7. So I had it a little bit higher. I like the book better than the movie because the movie doesn't focus on a whole lot of the other aspects of the sabermetrics that changed for the Oakland A's as much as the book does in terms of drafting and things like that. Again, you have to sell a movie. So they focused on the aspect that was most relatable and most understandable because, it doesn't, like the very first Moneyball draft pick for the A's was Nick Swisher. Of course, my issue with Moneyball the movie and Moneyball the book is that it, of course, omitted the 3 aces that Oakland had at the time. Now, granted, all of those guys' careers deteriorated pretty differently, but pretty quickly after they left Oakland to one extent or another. But it's hard to tell the story of that Oakland A's era without Hudson, Zito, and Mulder. And somehow Moneyball, the book and movie, both did it.
Correct. But they all 3 got paid.
They did. I don't feel bad for them. But, again, I'm just saying. There were some admissions that it's still a good movie. I enjoy it. It's entertaining. My number 9 is a little more of a guilty pleasure movie. And that is Summer Catch with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jessica Biel. I mean, it is about Summer League baseball up in Cape Cod. Again, it's not what I would call a great theatrical movie. And if you look at some of these top 25 lists and like Rotten Tomatoes top 10 baseball movies, like they're like, oh well, some movies that were just sorry, no. So for me, I didn't mind having a good, just a little. Mine is dotted with a few more comedies than some others, that's for sure. But I thought it was a good one. Again, it talks about something that a lot of people don't know about baseball if you're not a true diehard, and that is the Cape Cod Summer Baseball League and how important it is to some of those kids
right.
out there, whether they make it or don't make it.
I couldn't put that one on because it's Freddie Prinze Jr., and I just don't like the man.
I do. You ought to listen to his podcast. He's pretty funny, dude. He's actually a pretty cool dude. And again, Jessica Biel in a bikini. Need I say more?
Okay, but that had nothing to do with baseball.
Prime Jessica Biel, by the way, in a bikini. Just saying. Number 8.
For Love of the Game.
That did not even make my honorable mentions.
Oh, wow.
I just felt that was over the top sappy. I've never once been able to watch it all the way through. It's that over the top for me. But defend yourself.
I just liked that at the end of the game when Scully was calling the game. The last part of you're right. Everything else up to that I could have done without. But at the end, throwing the no-hitter? I think it was a perfect game, if I recall correctly. And 120, 130 pitches, his arm's dead, and you just continue seeing him go after it.
No, I mean, I get it. It's a good story. It's just not one. Again, I've never once watched it all the way through, let alone going to put it on my rewatch list. Because every one of these movies on my top 10, I've watched many, many times over. Not just once or twice, many, many times over. My number 8 is an easy one. It probably should be higher, except for it's a little too serious at times. But it's near and dear to my heart because it focuses around a degenerate gambler, and that's Hardball.
Okay. I don't have that one listed, but okay. I can see that one.
Great movie. A little scrappy little league team from the wrong side of the tracks. Keanu Reeves gets his life on track with a big bet for the Bulls, based in South Side of Chicago. What more do you need? Takes the kids to did he take them to Wrigley or Comiskey? I think Comiskey. So they could see their first big league game. Just an absolute degenerate human being who even his friends had given up on him. And then he gets his life together by coaching these scrappy wrong side of the track kids. And then little G Money gets killed at the end. And like I said, it's a little too serious sometimes, but I still rewatch it all the time.
All right.
Number 7?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, I'm not counting that as a baseball movie.
I figured you had that comment coming when I said that.
I love that movie. It is not a baseball movie.
But being a Cub fan, he was at Wrigley Field.
He was, and it does have a baseball scene in it. That does not make it a baseball movie.
It just seemed like I could see both of us doing that when we were in high school. Going off and saying, I'm going to the Cubs game.
If I had lived in Chicago, yes.
I could see you've done it for living here.
Well, I didn't, unfortunately, because I didn't have that kind of money to catch the train up there, get back, and and again, wouldn't get back in time. Plus, usually by the time I had money, I was working every day after school. So, So do you have an alternate one? Because I know you said you had an alternate one.
Angels in the Outfield.
Again, that was very close to making my honorable mentions. That is just such a kid's movie. I wouldn't rewatch it today. I mean, it's a good movie. Mm-hmm. It is. It gives us. Is that JGL in there?
Yes.
Is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt? I thought so. So you get a young JGL. Again, it was a perfectly fine movie, but just on my theory was I wouldn't rewatch it. So, but no, that's fine. Ferris Bueller, not a baseball movie. Great movie. If you haven't ever seen it, go watch it. You're missing out on one of the all-time great pieces of Americana there.
And then once you watch it, you can always comment back telling me it is a baseball movie.
Not a baseball movie. But you'll rewatch it over and over again if you haven't seen it. If you have, feel free to tweet at us at Off-Base Sports, one on Twitter, and we will take the debate there, I guess. Mm-hmm. My number 7, as I said already, was Moneyball. I think we covered that. Yep. So number 6?
61.
Didn't even make my honorable mentions.
Ooh.
It's a fine movie. It's one you should watch once. I'm not going to rewatch it. It's a story I already know. It's a story that was overdone and kind of retold, and I think touched up from a one-sided story to make it seem different than it was. And I get it. There was some serious tension and obviously the fact that it was an extra 8 games. There were a lot of people who felt like that didn't deserve to be record. And you get a lot of that now with the people with the steroid era. And there's a different argument there, though. It's not the same as 8 extra games. There's an argument to be made for 8 extra games. I feel like there could be a separate record book for the 154 game records and the 162 season records. Because it is a different accomplishment when you have 30 extra at-bats to do it.
Yeah, at the minimum 30.
I mean, because then you're talking probably another 4, possibly 5 home runs, depending on the streak for Babe Ruth.
Right.
I mean, but beyond the historical aspect, why do you rate it so high in your movie list?
That was the historical aspect of that movie.
Okay.
That was the only reason.
Some of my honorable mentions will hit the historical aspect, maybe one. But number 6 for me was Major League 2.
Okay.
First off, Bob Uecker. Need I say more as Harry Doyle? It was the perfect follow-up to the original Major League. It's one of the few times where I think the sequel does a good job of carrying the story on. You get Dorn moving from third base to ownership to selling the team to become GM. I thought it was a good story. You have Jake going from catcher to coach to manager.
Right.
I thought it was good. It made me laugh.
Okay.
Buddhism. Like I said, I could pick that movie up today. I have it on DVD. I have all 3 major leagues on DVD, and I do watch them from time to time. Number 5,
Bull Durham.
Got it at number 4, so not very far off.
Right.
What could you say? It is the quintessential minor league baseball movie.
Yeah.
Got the young upshot, the old guy with the cup of coffee barely hanging on, full of all the knowledge. It's a great movie. Fantastic movie. Again, if you haven't seen that, go. First off, then you're just not an American, and I don't want to talk to you. But second off, you're just not American, and I don't want to talk to you. Then go watch it, because then you're going to watch it about 100 more times, because it's that good. My number 5. This is probably my closest to being a baseball movie or not, but I feel like given the amount of baseball in this movie, it deserves to be called a baseball movie, and that was Brewster's Millions.
I had that on the list, but I took it off because it had less base. I thought,
here's the thing. It is based around the pitcher and the catcher.
Right.
And his desire, basically he wants to use his money that he inherits, again, not getting into too deep of the story, that he has to spend in the 30 days to then get the full inheritance to play a 3-inning game against the Yankees, because he's always said while he's bumming around in minor league baseball and that he could get anybody out for 3 innings. So he used his newly acquired wealth to get an opportunity to play the Yankees in an exhibition to prove he could get them out for 3 innings. Really, there's a lot else going on in the movie, and it's hilarious, and it's John Candy and Richard Pryor, and I don't have to sell it anymore. But there is, in my opinion, enough baseball going on.
Yeah, I agree. I had it up there, but I took it down because between that one and then Ferris Bueller, I was kind of I knew you were going to argue one of them's not baseball, if not both were not a baseball movie.
Well, we obviously know I'm not arguing the Brewster's Millions is not a baseball movie. Yeah, I put that on my list. So number 4?
I had the Major League trilogy, all 3 movies.
I don't have a problem with that because I put Major League then at number 3. Because, again, I felt like it was deserving of 2 separate places, particularly the first 2. The third one...
Yeah, the third one kind of pulled it down a little bit.
Tanaka's putt-putt golfing games. First there was putt-putt, then batting cages. Then it was still good. The third one was still good. But, yeah, I put them different, individually, just because I think the first one was that good.
Right. Okay.
Like, it is the quintessential baseball comedy.
Yes,
you are not going to find a better baseball comedy in existence ever. I challenge you hard to prove me wrong. You have a new owner. You have the former Vegas showgirl owner, girlfriend or new wife.
Wife, yeah.
Very new wife of the Cleveland Indians owner who then dies. Of course, this is an era of baseball from, this was made in the early 90s. So it was between 45, the 40s and 90s where the Indians didn't win anything. They were even worse, less competitive than the Cubs in that stretch. The Cubs may have went longer between World Series wins, although the Indians are getting close now because they're still without a World Series win in there.
Right.
But when in that stretch, they were even more futile than the Cubs. At least the Cubs had 45, 69, 84, 89. They had some stretches of decent baseball. The Indians did not. So, new owner wants to move the team down to Florida, but the attendance has to be bad. So she basically has, brings in a minor league manager to take over the team, a bunch of misfits. It's hilarious. I need to say less. Again, Bob Uecker as Harry Doyle, the greatest character in all of baseball movies. Period. End of discussion. Not even close.
Agreed.
Just a bit outside. I still quote Harry Doyle all the time.
I just like the cussing, and then he goes, nobody's listening anyway.
Again, if you go back to some of the early episodes of this podcast, that's what I originally named this. Don't worry, nobody's listening, and use that clip in the intro. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say I'm a fan. And again, I thought it deserved its own separate. I could see putting the trilogy together and bumping it down. Again, I own all 3. I watched the third. I think it's a step below the 2. Mm-hmm. I thought 1 and 2 were good enough to deserve their own separate spots.
Okay.
My number 4 was Bull Durham.
Oh, okay.
So what's your number 3?
42.
42? That made my honorable mentions.
And again, it's Jackie Robinson. I mean,
again, it's a great story. It's just not one I'm going to watch over and over. My number 3 was Major League. Mm-hmm. Again, if you don't know 42, it's the story of Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier and all the struggle that came with that, particularly, playing games down in the South. But even up north, and there were some very serious issues. So needless to say, I think that was a good movie. I just wouldn't watch it a ton.
Okay.
My number 3 was Major League, so what's your number 2?
Field of Dreams.
Ooh. That breaks my heart.
Why?
Breaks my heart. That's my number 1.
Ooh.
No doubter. Greatest baseball movie ever. It's not even close. There is not a baseball movie even in that discussion.
I'm a child at heart. You'll find out.
I know what your number 1 is because your number 1's my number 2. I guarantee you. We inverted our top 2. That's it. I guarantee it because I've already heard your top 10, and there's only one movie missing from your list that could be up that high. If you don't know what it is now, then you're just not a baseball person. You're not a baseball movie person. I feel bad for you. But Field of Dreams is by far the greatest baseball movie ever made. Not even close. You know what's the movie about?
Hall of Fame.
No. Field of Dreams. What's the movie about? At its core, the movie is about building a baseball field. Build it and they will come.
Yeah.
So he build it and he will come. It's about a boy playing catch with his dad. That is what that movie is. There is nothing more baseball and there's nothing more American than a boy wanting to have a catch with his dad. Nothing at all. He builds this place where all these dead baseball players get to come and replay and their ghosts. Mm-hmm. And I have been to the actual Field of Dreams out there. Even when I went in the mid 2000s or early 2010s, I guess. I have to go back and look. Late 2000s, early 2010s, probably early 2010s. It was still just cornfields and dirt roads leading up to it. And it was still just cut out, you'd still walk out into the corn just like the ghost did and walk back out. It's great. It was a great movie. It was, There's nothing more American. I repeat this, will never trust a human being no man that does not cry at the end of that movie. I don't trust you. You are a sociopath, and there's something wrong with you. To this day, I know how that movie ends. I've watched it hundreds of times, still tear up at the end of that movie. Not ashamed. That's how good that movie is. There's nothing more powerful than a boy getting to play catch with his dad.
Okay, well, let's talk about your 2, my 1.
Number 2, Sandlot.
That's right.
Hands down. Again, it's kids play baseball in the Sandlot. What more do I have to say? It is also Americana at its core. I just feel like it's one notch below because you have to split hairs at some point and pick a 1 and a 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm splitting hairs amongst all of, I would say easily amongst my top 4. I was splitting hairs at that point. I could safely say I could rearrange my top 4 in any order, and I wouldn't. If somebody wanted to rearrange those, I wouldn't be mad.
I would say 3 of the top 4. I mean, I could move Major League up. I've never put 42 as number 1.
Well, again, it's what you have for having Bull Durham out of your top 4. Yeah. That was your own mistake. It was a rookie mistake, and you hate to see it from a veteran player. You hate to see it. But, yeah, I mean, Sandlot. You have the misfit kid who just moved in the neighborhood before the summer who doesn't know how to play baseball. They take him in because they need a ninth, and then summer adventures ensue, and it's all based around baseball and the Beast. And he loses the Babe Ruth baseball, but instead gets a 21 Yankees ball for his dad. Murderer's Row, yada, yada, yada. Great movie. One of the best ever. Easily. Again, for me, it's one notch below Field of Dreams. But like I'm saying, at that point, any of my top 4, I'm splitting hairs.
You know, I did set you up for the favorite slime from the movie, and you didn't use it.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Yep.
Again, you're splitting hairs at that point. I could say it, but we're splitting hairs amongst those my top 4, your top 3. And like I said, I had some honorable mentions. Rookie of the Year was on there. 42 was on there. I feel like we're doing a disservice to baseball movies if we don't talk about the original Bad News Bears.
I just was not a fan of that movie. I mean, it was a good movie, but again, I'm not going to watch it again.
I mean, I will, but it's not among my top 10.
Right.
Again, going to baseball historical significance, A League of Their Own. That's a tough one. Again, this is why I ended up having to expand it from a 5 to a 10, because there are plenty of, easily a case to make for the top 20. Mr. Baseball. This is where Tom Selleck is basically doing the Cecil Fielder story, where he gets cut from the Dodgers, has to go over to Japan, struggles, da-da-da-da. Yeah, great movie.
When you said that, I was thinking Mr. 3000.
That's on my honorable mentions as well. Mr. 3000, Bernie Mac, legend, can't say anymore. That movie was hilarious. It was great. It was perfect. Love it. Little Big League. Kid's grandpa owns the Twins, and he dies, and he inherits the team. Manager's terrible, so he fires the manager and appoints himself the manager, and suddenly the Twins are good after, he has to prove himself.
Right.
Because, the team obviously doesn't want to listen to an 11-year-old. And then last but not least is Trouble with the Curve.
Okay.
That's one that I resisted watching for a long time because Clint Eastwood's politics kind of turned me off. But the movie's really good. Mm-hmm. It is a really good movie. And I feel remiss if I don't bring up The Natural. It's not one I would ever rewatch, but, I mean, it is baseball Americana at its very core.
When I Googled trying to get remember all the baseball movies and things, that one kept coming up. I go, I'm just not a big fan of that one.
No, I feel like that's one, if you were of age when it came out and part of that generation, then it is part of that lexicon and you're going to enjoy it. If you did not, if it was something that was already out when you you grew up, then you missed it. Like, you watched it to say you watched it, and it's like, great. It's a good movie, but it's nothing special. I mean, it also gets skewed when we get to grow up and watch Bo Jackson. Like, that guy's the natural? No. That guy's the natural. That guy's the phenom. Again, plays professional football as a hobby in his baseball off season. Man, I gotta really quit yelling in the mic. I keep hearing it pop every time I do.
Yeah.
And I can see it on the thing. I probably should turn it down. I can fix that in editing. Anyways, so yeah, I think, I feel very comfortable putting this out in the lexicon forever. Top 10. Number 10, 8 Men Out. Number 9, Summer Catch. Number 8, Hardball. Number 7, Moneyball. Number 6, Major League 2. Number 5, Brewster's Million. Number 4, Bull Durham. Number 3, Major League. Number 2, Sandlot. Number 1, Field of Dreams. You pick up those 10 movies and watch them in a weekend, you've had yourself a really awesome weekend. What more can I say?
Okay. All right.
So that gives us a good list.
I still protest Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Sorry. There's one scene of baseball does not make a baseball movie. It's close, but no. Unfortunately, like I said, I was sick last week for Christmas and the other holidays, so I got to miss one of my favorite seasons of the year. But that does not mean I'm not taking time to do it on my podcast. That's for sure.
Festivus!
It is time for the airing of grievances. And a lot of you have disappointed me this year. I've got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're going to hear about it. And I don't even know where to start. That's how many grievances I have this year. Well, I'm going to start, though.
Wait a minute. Before you start, we are not putting the poll up in wrestling to make this end. So whenever you're done is when we're done.
Right. Well, Festivus is already over. So this is just my airing of grievances so I can put it out there. Again, not a surprise that this is going to happen on this podcast, that we're going to air some grievances. I think if you listen to any, I like to air grievances. I do it well. I do it often. But you give me a once-a-year free pass. I do have a lot of problems with you people, and you're going to hear about it now. And I'm going to start with something that relates to UFC 232. I'm tired of hearing about John Jones, steroid cheater. That man is the greatest of all time at the light heavyweight. He's the greatest male UFC fighter ever, and it has nothing to do with steroids. You guys are just trying to find a reason to tear somebody down. He didn't. There's never once he's been tested for a significant amount of steroids, and also a something that he intentionally ingested. Period. End of discussion. There's never an amount that would have given him a benefit. Even now, the ones that he tested for recently were such a small dose that the test should not find that much. That's the problem when the test is finding that much. A millionth of a gram. A millionth of a gram. I want you to think about that. You can't visualize it. You can't think about it. It's that small. The test shouldn't be that fine. Particularly when we know there's not enough research science to back these things up.
So is that the reason why the California doctor okayed him to fight rather than Las Vegas saying, well,
and also California was where he failed the last time for that same amount, or the same kind of amount, that same picogram. Mm-hmm. And so they were already aware of his history with it. So they were more comfortable with it.
Okay.
Hate to tell you, DC particularly, you out there hating, it just makes you look salty. You're the heavyweight champion. That's great. You were never a light heavyweight champion. I don't care what belt UFC handed you. You were never the lightweight champion. Because as John Jones appropriately said when he got that belt back, Daddy's home. Because you never beat him, so you didn't take it from him. He never lost that belt for you to take it. He got suspended for a year for a hit and run on that didn't involve the UFC at all. Yet Conor McGregor gets to throw a dolly through a bus and injure multiple fighters and blow up an entire card and faces no suspension whatsoever. Dana White has gone out of his way. And being a Boston guy, there's a lot to be said, and some people need to look into it. Why is it that he's harder on his black fighters than his white fighters? Yeah, I said it. I'm throwing it out there. Suspends John Jones for a year for hit and run. Conor McGregor throws a dolly through bus, blows up an entire fight card the night before. Nothing.
Because it was staged and Dana White was aware of it before it happened?
Tyrone Woodley fought 4 months ago. He's getting threatened to get stripped of his belt. Conor McGregor didn't fight for 14 months and never once defended any of his belts. Finally stripped him after 14 months. Tyrone Woodley's your most active champion in the UFC in terms of defenses right now. And you're threatening to strip him? I think the Boston runs deep in you, Dana White. I think the Boston runs deep in you.
He wasn't stripped from not having defended the title in 14 months. Wasn't there something else that eventually got him stripped?
No, that was it. They finally took it for it was supposed to be Khabib and Ferguson. Then Ferguson hurt his knee tripping over UFC wires. Then it was supposed to be Max Holloway, who couldn't make the weight cut. Then it was supposed to be, I think, Michael Chiesa, but then he got hurt in the bus attack. So then they tried to make it one other person who wasn't even ranked. And then it ended up being Al Iaquinta for that fight. And he finally got stripped when that first punch was thrown. They finally said, okay, enough's enough. But again, 14 months versus 4. I'm not a mathematician. I'm just saying there's something different about these two. And it's not that it's anything other than a Boston issue. If you don't know what I'm saying when I'm saying a Boston issue, research Boston sports and racism, and you'll see it plenty. Trust me.
There's no video to this, but if you had the video, he was rubbing his skin as he was saying this whole thing. So just, you would got the clear picture that way.
Yeah, you guys start sending money to PayPal, JABANICKI at live.com. Then I can buy video equipment and we can put this on the web for you on YouTube. Not live. I won't go that far. I'm not going to live stream it. I'll still want to edit it for audio. But again, go up there, send some money. I'll buy the video equipment.
If you write a big enough PayPal, he will do it live.
Well, then I'll get a studio. Yeah, we'll do it live. But anyways, so like I said, stop calling John Jones a steroid cheat when you have zero evidence to prove it, or try to diminish him because you don't like him as a person. Sorry, greatest ever. Again, at UFC 232, we got to see 3 goats in one night.
Wait, before you go there, I got a question then. Why did UFC work so hard to keep that fight on?
Because they're running out of fights. They still need to sell pay-per-views. So even though the UFC has historically been anti-John Jones, they're at a point now where they need him. They've already had to cancel move one pay-per-view for the January one because they've got so many new ESPN fights that they can't fill all these cards. And yet they don't want to pay the Diaz brothers. That's another issue, another day. I've covered, I think, in depth. But so yeah, they needed to protect that card. They had, but anyways, as I was trying to say, we got to see 3 goats at UFC 232. What more could you ask for out of a card?
4?
I mean, if you get 4, I'll be really impressed. But obviously, you had Amanda Nunes knocking out Cyborg inside of a minute, which now should maybe make people pause on all their maybe Ronda Rousey was overrated hype talk, because if Ronda Rousey, and I've made the point for a long time that Cyborg might be overrated just because she's never had to really fight anybody her own size, and I still think given a rematch of this, she would win. But I think there's been this revisionist history to try and make, well, Ronda Rousey was just a product of her time, and she wasn't really that good, and she'd just be another person. Now, I still think she'd be pretty good. First off, women's MMA still isn't that deep. Let's not pretend that it's suddenly this polished, lightweight or middleweight divisions of the men's where you can go 20 guys deep in each division, and anybody could beat anybody on any given day. It just ain't that. So obviously you had that. You had John Jones, and then of course Beltran's mustache. It was one of the greatest things I've ever seen, and you always forget how great it is until you see it again. 3 goats, one night. What more could you ask for?
Grievance 2?
So grievance number 2. That's going to be to all my friends who I set up all this, have all this equipment. Oh, yeah, man, call me anytime. I'll do it. None of you fuckers answer when I call. Never. Send you a text ahead of time. You're exempt.
Okay.
But you're basically a co-host at this point. So you're not. Set this up. Give you guys I'm busy. Don't have time. Motherfucker, it's 60 minutes tops. You can find time if you want to find time. Need to find time. So, blasting all y'all fools. Maybe that way you'll find the time this year. Maybe do it even just 30 minutes, and I can rant for 30 more on my own. But I think there's time. There's always time if you want to do it. It's fine time. Great way to catch up, talk, have some fun. And then my third and final one I'm ending on here. And it's why I won't watch one goddamn minute of the NFL playoffs. The NFL officials. This has been by far your most embarrassing season in the NFL in the officiating world. It is atrocious. It is embarrassing. It is altering the outcome of not just games, but seasons. There are 5 different calls I can point to that if you change any one of the 5, the Steelers are in the playoffs and the Ravens aren't. The offsides not called in the Steelers-Chargers game that resulted in a touchdown. The block in the back in that same game for the punt. The pass interference call on Joe Hayden on 4th and 2 against the Saints in the end zone, where the ball's 5 feet over his head as he's jumping, but somehow that was ruled catchable, even though he wasn't even. He was touching the person like you would touch a piece of paper.
Okay, I'll give you that. The receiver sold that he was pushed, but
the receiver didn't really sell it either. He didn't really. If you go back and watch it, the receiver didn't try to sell it. He didn't even look for a flag.
Well, I must be thinking of different because I got one where he had his hands on his back. He didn't really push, but
no, that was that one. But again, the receiver didn't look or sell it. He just jumped up to try and catch it, and then the official called it. But if you go back and watch, he didn't sell it. He didn't even look for a flag. He knew he wasn't interfered with, but he got one. Then in that same game, on a 4th down in the 4th quarter, when Joe Hayden makes a play on the ball, he was called for another pass interference. And then the most egregious of them all, and because this rule is terrible and it needs to be changed, and your officials need to learn to let plays play on.
Correct.
There are a million times I have watched guys be over a yard into the end zone and the play not be stopped. Somehow Lamar Jackson, who is short of the end zone, fumbles the ball. Jabril Peppers is 35 yards down the field past anybody else. Oh, no, it was a touchdown. He was in. Oh, wait, he was short, and now you get the ball back at the 7 where you recovered it instead of the touchdown you clearly had. That
whistle blew or not, you gave Jabril Peppers 5 yards. Nobody was catching Jabril Peppers.
More importantly, the whistle shouldn't blow. Let the play on until you have a logical conclusion.
There was nobody on unless it was Lamar Jackson himself.
And he was in a pile. He wasn't coming.
Was catching Peppers. Peppers that fast. You weren't catching him. He had a touchdown.
Right. Play the play out at that point. And again, these are just one team, 5 calls.
I mean, I can agree with you because I watched the Bears-Vikings, and the NFL did everything possible to keep Vikings in and Philadelphia out because
officiating has been atrocious this year. And again, you're going to. I will not watch any playoff football because of it. I have no interest in watching it because it has affected the season that much.
I can't say my Bears are finally in the playoffs. I'm going to watch.
Right, and there'll be anybody who has a playoff team will, and there'll be plenty of people who have that are just fans of teams that will tune in and watch. Or just fans of football. That's fine. I'm just saying I won't because that's how bad it's been. I'm tired of it. And it's not just the Steelers. There were plenty of other teams who faced the same thing. And then you get the people, well, they still had, the Steelers still had their chances throughout. They should have You shouldn't have to overcome that.
Correct.
Again, if you make 2 4th down stops, you shouldn't have to overcome that by still then scoring on your own. Well, but if Stephen Ridley doesn't fumble, or they don't go for the fake punt on 4th, or Juju doesn't, none of that matters if they don't get the gift touchdown. Again, that was the turnover on downs, and instead now they've got the ball at the 1 yard line. You shouldn't have to overcome that. You shouldn't count on the Cleveland Browns having to overcome a terrible officiating call. Again, routinely you wait till somebody's a yard in to call it a touchdown. He's short, and somehow no, play was dead. Just let the plays play out through their natural conclusion. And then you can say, after he goes to the end zone and scores, okay, yeah, he was in touchdown. And then go to the replay.
All right.
But let the play all the way out. Once the ball popped out loose, let it go all the way through. And I know what they'll say. Well, we're player safety. We're afraid people will get hurt if we let plays play on too close. There aren't that many judgment call plays in a game where that's that big of an issue.
But every other time, when the quarterback's arm, was it a fumble or is he throwing the ball? They let the play.
Yeah. As you should. You should always let the play. You can go back and fix it either way on replay.
Right.
You can't go back and fix it if you stop the play.
Mm-hmm.
Or they need to change the rule so you can. Look, clearly Jabril Peppers was going to score. We're giving the Browns 7 points. We're not giving you the ball at the 7 yard line. Although then the Browns did the most Browns thing on the very next play when Baker Mayfield hits a wide open Jarvis Landry in stride, basically, except it hits him on his goddamn face mask. And then you're 1st and 10 at the 38, need to get about 5 yards to get in a comfortable field goal range. You keep trying to chuck it up as they start blitzing you like crazy. Run a quick out, run a slant, run something that lets him get the ball out of his hand quick enough. Or, I don't know, keep 2 people in the block. Keep a tight end and a back in the block if they're going to keep coming. Or give the halfback the option route. Boom, boom, out. So yeah, I'm going to keep it short to 3 grievances. I think that's enough. I don't want to go too long on ranting and raving, but I do want to touch on a little bit of UFC 232. I've kind of touched it on a little in my ranting and grievances, but shout out to John Jones for reclaiming his light heavyweight throne. Obviously, after what happened in the week leading up to that fight, there has never been a fighter with more pressure on them to deliver in a fight, and he delivered in a very big way. And then you get on MMA Twitter, and of course, was he striking to the back of his head when he was down on the ground, doing the ground and pound? I think every fighter has occasionally inadvertently delivered strikes to the back of the head, because anything behind the ear is considered the back of the head when a fighter is grounded on the ground. Didn't change the outcome. Gustafsson was getting walloped in that fight, no matter what. He could barely walk on his one leg, not from, as he tried to say, that groin shot earlier, but from the leg kick that just absolutely destroyed his shit. Like, you could literally watch the fight, see him lose his movement right after that. He was moving fine after the groin shot, but afterwards he tries to do what every John Jones opponent does and create an excuse for how they lost. Just say you lost to a better fighter. There is nobody in that light heavyweight division that is on the skill level of John Jones. It's okay. It's okay to say that. Amanda Nunes, hats off to you. I didn't see that coming. I really thought that the size of Cyborg would be too much to overcome. I was wrong. Hats off to you. I think in a rematch she still gets you, because I think when she gets hit the second time, she's not gonna just charge it and be like me on the UFC game where I just start wildly throwing haymakers like stop. Because even I've learned to do better than that in the UFC video game. I back off, regroup, just keep my guard up so the other person can't knock me out. And once I regroup, then I start doing my thing again. Just overhand, spinning heel kick, boom. Let's go to work. Do this. So like I said, great fight. I mean, it was a great card all the way through. Michael Chiesa looked way better at 170 as a fighter than he did at 155. And he really only weighed about 3 or 4 more pounds on fight day. But it's that extra draining your body to get down to 155 that was zapping him of his power. But it was a good card all the way through. Way to end the last Fox era in terms of the Fox Sports 1 cards. Megan Anderson winning on that weird toe kick that went right into Zagano's eye. And then Zagano going on Twitter like, why is this not a no contest? Like, because that's the rule. Like, there's a difference, because people can purposely hit you with a finger in the eye. I don't care how good of a kicker you are. You're not intentionally kicking your big toe into somebody's eye. Like, she just delivered a really good kick that landed on your face. You happened to just pull away in just the right way, and it put the toe in the eye. But the rule is the rule, and it's the right rule. It shouldn't be a no contest. Mm-hmm. Like, again, she inflicted damage into a fight. Period. You know?
Right.
It wasn't like she was eye poking. There's a difference. So I thought it was a good card. Thought it was a great way. Great way to end the year. Hopefully we'll see some good cards next year because of it, because now there's some compelling fights to make out of there. It does put the women's divisions in flux, because now with Cyborg losing and really only having one more fight on her contract, although her contract ends in March. So I'm not sure if she has to, fulfill that fight and be March, or be past that fight and March. I don't know how the UFC contracts work to be done. Whichever comes first, the fight or March, does she get, is she out of her contract? Because I think she's been very unhappy with being in the UFC, so I think she's going to look to go elsewhere if possible. And then with only really Megan Anderson being the only other 145er, true 145er the UFC has, do they even keep that division afloat? Same way that Dana White was being coy about what's going to happen to the 125 division after the fight in Brooklyn. They're counting on Dillashaw going down, beating Cejudo, winning that 125 belt, and then saying, don't really need a 125 division anymore. I really think that's going to happen. I think the 145 is going to go away. But if it doesn't, then you have this weird thing where now you have, again, it's the downside to this desire to do super fights of the UFC to sell pay-per-views, is now you have one person occupying 2 championship tiers, and you're creating issues on how do you move either division forward in a compelling way when it's all tied up through one person. Because obviously one person can only fight 3 or 4 times a year.
Right.
Maximum. Particularly at a championship level, because it's kind of becoming more obvious that the 5-round fights, particularly when they go 5, take a person longer to recover. So a lot of times those people only fight 2 times a year if they fight in those kind of wars. If you have one person, now all of a sudden you may have a division that doesn't have a single title fight for a year. Great to sell pay-per-views, not great for, selling the story of the division, keeping the division moving forward. But we'll see. I fully suspect that 145 women's will go away, that 125 men's will go away, but that we'll see a 165 and a 170, and men's move to 175. So I think we'll see a little reshuffling there to make some more compelling fights.
Okay.
We'll see. They said there's big things on the horizon. We'll see.
They got to do something with that big deal they got with ESPN.
It's an awful lot of fights to fill. Awful lot. And now, granted, they're doing one less pay-per-view this year. They're doing 12 instead of the normal 13. But I still think that's too many. I think you need to get down to about 8 or 6. Or if you really want your Fight Pass thing on UFC to really take off, do it like the WWE has decided. They don't even sell pay-per-views anymore. You pay the $10 a month for their app and you get every one of the special fights.
Yeah.
Guess what? You want people to subscribe to UFC Fight Pass? Stop making it the very first 2 or 3 preliminary fights. Make it the pay-per-view card. Now every UFC fan is going to pay that $10 a month. Now, granted, you're going to only get $120 a year, and some people were spending more than that. And there's some of us who weren't spending dime one on pay-per-views. We'd either go watch it somewhere, or we stream it illegally, or some other way of viewing it without paying $65 a month. So then you could capture our revenue for that way, the same way the WWE did. They I'm going to guess at the end of the day, they're making more money now than they were on the old pay-per-view model.
I would pretty much guarantee it, or they would stop doing it.
Because most people think of it as $10 a month, no biggie.
Mm-hmm.
But when you had to shell out $65 once a month to see all of those events, or 8 times a year, or whatever it was, I was a big fan during the 4 main events era. You had WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and Royal Rumble. That was it. Those were your 4 pay-per-views, and then they started adding all kinds of them. So it's hard to tell if they were at 8 or 12.
They're at 12.
There was a ton. But now, if you're paying for it every month anyways, good. And it helps the WWE capture more money. I think it helped help UFC capture more money to do something similar. Because more people would sign up for their Fight Pass. They'd be able to have more consistent revenue. Instead of having to count on one big star to sell a fight or anything. So, but I'm just one person. What do I know? All right, I think that brings us to headlines. I think we're going to tweak headlines going forward. So I told Todd, only 5 headlines this time. And they didn't have to be sports related. So hopefully there'll be something that can elicit a reaction and also just a conversation. And I think, given that we put this together last minute today, I'll even give them more direction going forward to make them something that could be even humorous. They don't necessarily need to be creating me being ranty and ravey hilarious, but it could be just like stupid news from around the world.
Well, I didn't listen. I have 12, but I'm going to do 5 of them.
5. Pick the 5 absolute best. Ones that you think are the dumbest, the funniest.
I got the first one right away.
Okay.
LeBron James claims he is the GOAT after winning the title in Cleveland.
Yeah, and I'm the GOAT of eating chicken wings. Yeah, I can say whatever I want. It doesn't make it so. And that's the case there. LeBron, 2011 still happened. It still counts. This stat line will forever live in your history. In any time you are mentioned in the same word as GOAT, even if it's just goat cheese, I'm going to remind the world, as I did on Bleacher Report when they pushed this article out yesterday, 897. That line right there, that stat line, ended your discussion as GOAT. Ever. End of discussion, period. And you know what makes it worse? Because people can say, well, it's almost a triple-double. He was being guarded by 5'10" J.J. Barea, who weighed maybe 180 pounds. He wasn't being guarded by a defensive stalwart. He was stopped from scoring by himself and himself alone. You put Michael Jordan today on a 5'10", 180-pound man, and he still scores 40 points.
Not only did he score 40 points, he might score 50 because every time down the court, he'd be like, no, give me the ball.
Again, it would have been embarrassing, and no team ever thought to try it because they knew what would happen. They knew he wouldn't shrink away from the moment. You shrank away from the moment. You may have gotten better over time, But once you shrank away from that moment, you were done. You were on the more talented team at that time. You were the best player in the world, and you lost because of you and you alone. No, you're not the GOAT. Never will be. Get the fuck over yourself.
Ready for the next one?
Let's go to number 2.
Jason's man, Pat McAfee, signs a contract with the WWE.
What more gift could we get for the new year? This is one of the all-time greatest Christmas gifts that we've gotten. Again, you can't see it, but I am wearing an official pub member T-shirt today. Obviously a big fan of the Pat McAfee Show 2.0 and Heartland Radio 2.0 podcasts that Pat McAfee does out of Indianapolis, Indiana. So I do worry a little what it'll mean towards his podcast going forward, because we all know that the WWE life is a very busy one. But it also didn't say that it was what his contract was.
It did say it was a 5-year contract.
Right.
I don't know what it was for, but he got a 5-year contract.
And he's been doing a lot of NXT events as an announcer. So, will it be an NXT kind of thing where he does a lot of those events? Will it be something where they're working to develop him to move him up to the big show over time? Because even then, even if you do the big show, you really, the announcers really do the TV shows. They don't have to do as much of the road, grind it out every single day. But it'll still be a lot of, you're still talking one Sunday every month, plus Monday and Thursday.
Tuesday.
Or is it Monday and Tuesday?
It's Friday now. Going to Fox, it's going to be Fridays.
Okay. But again, you know what I'm saying? There's 2 days a week where you're gone for the TV show at least, plus the travel. I'm excited for it. Again, the WWE is in the entertainment business. Now, he said it's by and large for creating digital content for them, so it may be something that he does a lot of still while he's, in Indianapolis, and then sometimes he goes down to Orlando and works with them there.
Okay.
And sometimes goes to New York. And sometimes I'm guessing he'll still do NXT events and things like that. Until we know the exact thing, details of the contract, if we ever know. Smart hire by the WWE. I mean, did anybody watch any of the Lions Packers game this weekend?
Yes, it did.
There was only one thing entertaining about it, and it wasn't the Lions and the Packers. So if you're in the entertainment business, you should be in the Pat McAfee business right now. Good move by the WWE. Pat McAfee loves the WWE. Why wouldn't, he's going to fit there way better than he would in a or in an NFL booth,
Right.
He's entertaining up there, but that's not what NBC or CBS or ABC or Fox are going to want.
No.
So, they don't mind it on a one-off when it's a regional game last week of the season and they need people to watch. But nope, smart move on both sides. Love it. What more could you ask for, Cuzzy? What more could you ask for?
I figured you like that one, that's why I tossed that one in there.
Yep, love it.
All right. I'm going to need you to let me get this one all the way out before commenting or making any facial expressions. Trump claims that Obama put a 10-foot wall because it's not safe. So walls protect people around his house in the Illinois, still think it's the Chicago area. I know it's not exactly Chicago, but the Chicago area. Google Maps takes picture, no 10-foot wall.
Donald Trump lied? I'm stunned and amazed. This is a new development. From a guy who is such a broker of honesty and truth, why would he mislead people intentionally? I can't fathom that this would happen. I'm stunned and flabbergasted. Get out of here. Come on. That's even weak sauce. Like,
how you claim the man has a 10-foot wall, and then they go take a picture, and there's no 10-foot wall?
Same way he claims Mexico's going to pay for a wall. Now he shut down the government for over a week because the Democrats won't sign off on him getting $5 billion to pay for the wall.
This is another question. How long does that last?
Well, he's really at a point now where he can't win. But the question is how... You're talking about a guy who found a glitch in a system where people come into your business, give you all of their money, and leave, and they don't complain. He found a glitch in that 3 times. Not once, not twice, 3 times. You go into a casino. You plan on losing all your money. You hope to win, but you basically go in with the thought process you're going to lose all your money you take in. Some people end up losing even more than they take in because they go dumb and go to ATMs and things like that. But again, at the end, at your core, what do you go into a casino? You go in, you hand your money to the house, you leave, and you come back and do it over again because you had a good time. He found a glitch in this. He found a way to make that not profitable. I'm not surprised. The man's incompetence knows no bounds. None. Zero. We are going to look back on this as a golden era of comedy and the golden moment of how the fuck did we allow the
numbnuts
people to... I'm trying to think of how I want to word this properly because, again, I understand why people voted for Donald Trump. There are a lot of reasons. There's not one. And when people try to make it this monolithic that voted for him and voted for him for one reason or only one or two reasons, that's short-sighted it. But we'll look back at this as an era of why have we allowed the Electoral College to go on so long? I mean, if you think about it, he got a lesser percentage of the vote than Mitt Romney did, who got 47 and change. He got 45.9 of the total popular vote. There is zero reason that somebody who can't get at least close to the majority, because we'll never do runoffs in this country, but when you're that short, when you're 4% short of the plurality, you probably shouldn't be running the country, particularly when you're the second vote getter by a clear 3 million. Joe Rogan does an amazing bit at the beginning of his most recent special where he talks about what Thomas Jefferson's reaction would be if he came back alive now. He'd be like, you guys haven't written any new shit? This is it? Like, you realize this was supposed to be updated, right? Like, this was the beginning. You add more new shit. You didn't add new shit. Again, paraphrasing, I butchered it badly. Go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's great.
But I expected him to lie about a fence. I figured you'd see something on the compound that he has, something 10 feet outside of his house that could be considered a fence, and then we have to go, what is a definition? There's nothing even fucking 10 feet there.
I agree. But you know what? He's gotten accustomed to this era now where his most ardent supporters don't care. He can say whatever and it's truth to them, even if it's provably false. Again, we are in a post-factual era with him. And when people try to argue facts with his followers, then they just come off as haters, and it's a bad thing. And so you have to particularly just going forward dealing with Trump, and eventually when Mueller comes out with his report, and this concept, well, it's been 18 months or almost 2 years, it should be done. Whitewater ran basically for almost all 8 years of the Clinton administration. Iran-Contra ran for 7. These things are deep and complicated and detailed, and it's not just they're not investigating you for DUI, okay?
What should we expect out of that report?
They're I don't know. That's the problem, is you don't know, because there has been almost zero credible leaks as to what they know. They won't tell you. And again, at the point that any Trump team member comes out and says something, I don't believe them. They're all liars as well. Most of them have been provably convicted of lying under oath.
But they're all trying to defend something. That means something somewhere came out to where they're afraid of something. If you're sitting there trying to defend it before it came out, officially comes out.
Well, again, that's going to be a hard tell what's out there, what's not. And I'm not going to speculate because that's dangerous.
Right.
But again, you're being investigated for treason and conspiring with an enemy to the United States to steal an election. It's going to take more than 18 months to get to the bottom of that. Because here's what you don't want. You don't want them to come out and say, well, we're not sure. That's the worst thing that could happen.
True.
You want them to come out one way or the other. And people need to accept it one way or the other. Either, yes, okay, here's the evidence of where they met with, Russian surrogates, or after years of looking, after talking to every possible witness and anybody who would have had any knowledge of this and tracking down every bit of cell phone data and computer data and every bit of trackable data we could find, every trace of mail we could find, there's nothing there. That's what you want either way. It needs to be conclusive, A or B. But yeah, it's a post-factual world with Donald Trump. And he doesn't even try anymore. He goes that far to the unprovable. Again, he doesn't realize his tweets and interviews live on forever. This is a guy who said the president should resign if a shutdown goes more than 48 hours. Please, resign.
Isn't this the third shutdown he said?
No, this is his first one.
You might want to think.
I think this is the first actual shutdown. I think they got close a couple of times before and stopped it, but this is the first actual one. But either way, again, not surprised. Was that number 3?
Yep.
Got 2 more to go. Make them good.
Mayweather knocks out kickboxer, collects $9 million.
First off, this should have been on my rants, but it just happened yesterday, so it wasn't on my airing of grievances. It wasn't a fixed fight, people. For everybody who says, well, after he hit him with the one punch behind the ear, he fell so easily. Well, yeah. There's a reason why on almost every major combat sport that you're not supposed to hit somebody behind the ear, because other than boxing, because it discombobulates your equilibrium. And the only reason it's allowed in boxing is because I don't know why. I don't even know if it is allowed in boxing. I shouldn't say that it is. It was a showcase, so they didn't really call it. But he got clipped really hard right behind the ear, and then he had a delayed fall because that's where he lost his equilibrium. Big shock. A 20-year-old MMA, kickboxer gets manhandled by the 41-year-old greatest technical boxer ever. Wow. Shocking. Stunning development. He was clearly, first off, he was still fast. You could see the kid was hesitant because he's not normally a boxer, so you're limiting his tool chest from what he's used to doing. But 2, he was bigger. He was stronger. He's taller than the kid. He's heavier than the kid by time. There's a reason why there's weight divisions, and 10 pounds is usually a big gap to cover for somebody. He's 4 inches taller, so he had more he had every advantage. And yeah, he made $4.5 million per minute. Good work. Good for you. Good for you, Floyd. Yeah. I watched it on replay, and
it wasn't very long.
Nope. It was 2 of the Cyborg Nunez fights, though.
And Pacquiao, you can take your complaining on Twitter and shut up, too. I'm tired of that.
Again, I'm over all Twitter whiners, to be fair. It really should have been just more in general, my airing agreement. I'm tired of social media haters in general. If you don't like somebody, don't follow them. You don't have to comment.
I didn't.
No, but I'm just talking all these people who do. Like Pacquiao, why are you commenting about what Mayweather does? He was willing to fight you on this exact date. You couldn't make it work. Okay. He moved on to something else to make money. DC commenting on John Jones. Guess what? He whooped you twice. There's not going to be a different outcome the third time.
Is that why he relinquished the belt? Because he was going to lose it to him?
Well, they were going to strip him of it, and he didn't want to be stripped.
Oh.
Because if you're stripped, you did something wrong. Because he's trying to make a deal because John Jones has been stripped. It's like, quit being salty. He's a better fighter than you. It's okay. You're not the greatest MMA fighter of all time. It's okay to say that. You're still great. And then actual Twitter trolls. I don't get what you get out of just hopping on somebody's feed and hating on them all day long. Like, what do you personally get out of that?
You know what happens to Twitter trolls right now? Ask Tekashi 6ix9ine. He's sitting in federal jail still.
Well, that's a whole different scenario there.
But he was a Twitter troll and he got it.
Well, that was a guy just thinking he could play gangster with real gangsters, and then they set it up. They kind of set him up. Like, guess what? Yeah. We'll put your name on everything. Absolutely. You'll get lots of street cred for this. Also, you'll get federal charges. Not a smart man.
And by the way, when you're a fake gangster, never challenge the game's gangsterability.
No.
That's not a smart move, because if he wanted to, he would no longer be here.
Yep. Again, I don't need to go on that one. That's just hilarious. Breakfast Club covers it very well. Jesus and Miro covers it very well.
Well, we pretty much covered all of them. I've got 2 left, and they're both NFL. So I know what you said about the officiating already. So this is going to be a hard one for me to pick. I'll toss them both out there. You answer the one you want. Super Bowl prediction: 8 NFL coaching jobs open. What's the best job?
So I'm going to take the NFL head coaching jobs. So they're all very different. Also, I think that we're going to see one more opening because I think one of these openings is going to get filled by a head coach currently in the playoffs. I'm going to make that bold prediction right now.
You really believe Baltimore's going to trade John Harbaugh?
I think he is leaving Baltimore one way or the other this year, yes. I think he does not believe in the offense he is running right now. I don't think he believes in the long-term future of an offense led by Lamar Jackson. I think we have all seen time and again that these high school-type offenses can work in the NFL for about one season. Mm-hmm. And then once you give defensive coordinators an offseason to game plan against them, they go away. Cam Newton got to a Super Bowl running a more advanced version of one, but still, since then, pretty corralled.
And Cam Newton's about 3 times the size of Lamar Jackson?
I don't know about that, but he's definitely a bigger athlete,
he's built.
And he's definitely a more complete quarterback coming out of college, and obviously at this stage of his career, he's much more complete, but still struggles. Mm-hmm. I think John Harbaugh doesn't believe in it 100%. That defense is aging. It's not going to get better.
Oh, no.
And defense is riding into its sunset years.
They are definitely not going to be able to do what Seattle did. I have no idea how Seattle did it that quickly and got that defense that good that quick.
Well, again, I think they've hit on late-round picks better than any of us expected. I'd have to go back and look at the current defense as it's actually started playing well and see how many of those guys are mid- and late-round picks. So that's where Seattle's made all of its bread and butter, really. Mm-hmm. They've really not been good at picking at the top of the draft. That's been their biggest issue.
I'm a team that follows that same... I might as well trade my first-round pick because he can't pick a...
Hey, you did. For the next couple of years. Worked out really well for you, by the way.
Yeah.
Way better than drafting. But yeah, so I think there will be some shuffling. I would have to say, in a world where I am an NFL head coach and I get my pick of any of the 8 jobs, I'm taking Cleveland.
Okay.
And that's scary because their owner is terrible. But they have a young quarterback who can make plays. Makes boneheaded plays at times, too. But you have a lot of young talent on that defense. You have some young skilled players around him. You're still going to have, you've got all your picks, plus other people's picks still going for it.
You got 11 picks this year.
So you're still going to be able to add more talent. That line is still really good, even without Joe Thomas. I think they're a team on the come-up.
Okay.
I'm not as foolhardy as some people out there who say they might win the division in the next 2 years in the NFC North. I'm not that crazy.
AFC North.
AFC North. Sorry. Should know better, but I just want them out of my division because they are going to be a better team here in the very near future. But out of all the jobs, that's the one I want. The Jets have Sam Darnold and nobody else, and Robbie Anderson, I guess, wide receiver. But their offensive line needs a lot of help. Their defense is bad. Green Bay is, again, had Aaron Rodgers start all 16 games. Now, there were a couple games where he didn't play the whole game, but he started all 16 games and only won 6. So you have one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and you've still only won 6 games. How bad is the rest of your roster?
Correct.
That bad. Cincinnati. They have nothing to build around on either side of the ball, really. Okay. So they're in a terrible position. You're trying to make me think of all the openings now.
Miami,
same thing. They're going to have a mid-round, first-round pick and nothing to build around. Arizona does have a young quarterback, a younger running back, but they still got some work to do. Mm-hmm. What else am I missing? Jets, Packers, Cleveland, Miami, Arizona, Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. Who else fired a coach mid-year? It was Green Bay and
Cleveland.
Okay. Oh, yes.
I'm missing 2. That's the worst part. No, Bill. Just the Bengals and Browns in the North.
Right.
AFC South is... Tampa Bay.
By the way...
Owner who wants to keep Jameis Winston? Fuck you. The guy is bad on the field. He is even worse of a person off of it. Why on earth would I want that? And... Nope. Nothing in the... AFC West. Oh, Denver. Yeah, no. John Elway is the problem there. I would not want to work for John Elway. He keeps making you the problem, not admitting he's the problem. So yeah, no. Cleveland is probably the one I want the most, and I don't really wouldn't want any of those jobs, to be fair, because there's none of them that are really a situation to me. Because Cleveland is the best situation, and you still have to deal with Jimmy Haslam.
Okay.
No.
I do got one more thing to tell you. Kirk Cousins put a ski mask on this year to collect his checks.
See, I don't know, because here's the thing. You can say a lot about what you want about Kirk Cousins, and you can. And there are plenty of issues to have. His record against teams with a winning record is atrocious. But that Minnesota offensive line was horrible. Like, I'm talking Steelers line 7-8 years ago horrible. Like, so bad that it just inhibits your ability to play the game of football. And you saw that with what the running backs weren't able to do, let alone what Kirk Cousins didn't have time to do.
But when they got the new offensive coordinator, they had all those great 2 games against people who can't play defense.
Well, right.
And then he ran into the Bears.
I mean, again, that was a good time to fire him. Sort of like it was supposed to be a good time to fire Fred Hoiberg, because then Jim Boylan would take over when everybody got healthy and he'd go against easy schedule. Except for that even when he has his 4 best players healthy, so Wendell Carter, Zach Levine, Chris Dunn, Laurie Markkinen, he still rates last in every major offensive category with the offense he's running. How? I forgot. I did have one more grievance
I was going to say,
and I
make it short.
Almost forgot. I don't have to make it short. It's my podcast. I can make it as long as I want. And this is why I should write more things down, because when I write them down, I have a good note. You know, even if I don't write down a full note, if I just write down a list, I can build my thoughts off of that
He
list.
would just need the letters GP.
No. See, my grievance is with the Reinsdorf family. All of you motherfuckers. Every last one of you who allow this to continue. You are trying to rebuild now. You finally, and John Paxson finally admitted, oh yeah, this rebuild's going to take a little bit of time. You know, as opposed to this year where he thought they were ready to start competing and win games and might be able to compete for the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Shocking, John Paxson. You can't rebuild in 1 year. But no, this goes to the Reinsdorf family that allows the Garpax situation to carry on. They have fired 5 coaches. No GM should get to fire 5 coaches and go through a 4th rebuilding phase like they're getting ready to enter now. Like, you are the problem. You have nobody else to blame yourself. And then I'm extending this to Bulls fans who continue to buy tickets and merchandise. As long as you go to the games, they will not fire John Paxson and Carr Foreman. They do not care. The Reinsdorfs have made it clear through both teams that they own, by the way. Because as soon as the White Sox stop drawing, they start tearing that roster apart too. Yep. It's not like he actually people make the mistake that Jerry Reinsdorf pays more attention to baseball than basketball, that he cares more. He doesn't. He's still going to treat them both the same. If they're not making him money, he's not going to spend it. And then he will change things. So if you want the Bulls front office to change, Bulls fans, my problem with you is you can't keep going to the games. I get it. There were decades where you couldn't get a ticket for under 3 figures, and you had to wait 5 years to get it. Too bad. Right now, if we all boycott appropriately, then change will happen. In the meantime, there is no clear plan. They are building a roster for 1999 still. We have more bigs than we know what to do with. You know, they benched Jabari Parker. He was averaging 16 and 7. What more did you expect out of him? He is who he is, and you knew who he was when you gave him $20 million.
I have a question. When does a Reinsdorf realize they're writing a check for somebody for $20 million and he doesn't see him ever?
Doesn't care. Still selling out. He's still making profit.
There's got to be a Reinsdorf that's financially reasonable that will see this.
Well, but again, you had to get to the salary floor. Again,
I can have Carmelo Anthony on my team and picks.
Well, you could have had not Carmelo Anthony on your team, but picks.
I can put Carmelo Anthony. He can't do shit. He can't score. He can't rebound. He can't play defense anymore.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You could have traded for him, picked up a first-round pick, and not had him on your roster.
But the tanking plan would have been better if he was on the roster.
I don't know. It might be fine if they play Chandler Hutchinson more, too, because that dude's not good. Not good at all. I mean, granted, we are sitting on the 7th anniversary of Jimmy Butler playing in his first NBA game, and we saw how far he came over 7 years, so it's early to make that judgment, but right now he's not good. Not good at all. And the fact that they locked into that pick basically at the combine and never deviated. Shame on them. Just if you're picking that late in the draft, you should never be making promises because you don't know what's going to unfold in front of you. There were much better players available. But again, you locked yourself into a big man up top because you wanted a big man. Had to have somebody to protect the paint. And then you locked yourself into Hutchinson. Now, if I'm a Bulls, so you get Wendell Carter and Chandler Hutchinson. Both guys with lower floors than some of these other guys that I'm going to mention, but lower ceilings than the two guys I'm going to mention. If I asked any Bulls fan, would you rather have Wendell Carter and Chandler Hutchinson or Michael Porter and Mitchell Robinson? I bet you 65% take Michael Porter and Mitchell Robinson, if not more.
I take Porter, and I don't know who the fuck Mitchell Robinson is.
He's the big man that went to a 5-star big guy who ended up not going to Western Kentucky because he was going to play at Western Kentucky, then he wasn't. Then there were eligibility issues. He's on the Knicks. He's actually...
Oh, okay.
I mean, he's a project, but again, he has such a high ceiling. You know, again, the Bulls drafted as if they were going to compete for the 8th seed, and they have set the rebuild back because of it. I mean, end of discussion. It's not even close. It is beyond time to fire Carr Pax. Reinsdorf family, the longer you let this go on, the longer I'm not going to even tune in to watch one single Bulls game on TV right now. All I have to do is continue to look at the statistics that tell me they're dead last at every major offensive category. Offensive pace, offensive rating, da-da-da. And then you get the people who continue to insist that re-signing Zach LaVine was a good idea. His net rating this year is lower than it has been almost any year of his career. He has gotten worse defensively, and he's not that good offensively. Like, he puts up points, but his offensive rating is not high because he turns the ball over so much, and he dominates the ball so much. It's like, again, I could have Tim Hardaway and picks doing the same thing that Zach LaVine's doing.
Got 2 quick questions, quick answers, and I'm done then. I'm out. Machado, Harper, signing where? It's January. It's got to be coming.
I do think it's coming. I think Machado ends up in the Yankees still.
Ooh.
I really do. I think this year they have a need at shortstop. Their shortstop won't be back till next year. And I think they're not sold on their third baseman as a third baseman long term.
Okay.
So I think Machado gives them the answer at shortstop this year and third base long term.
Okay.
So that's where I think he ends up. I think the Yankees find the money. And this might be optimism. This might be every bit of blind Cubs fandomness in me. But if Bryce Harper was signing somewhere else that wasn't the Cubs, it would have happened already. I think the only reason he has not signed already, if he wanted to be on the Dodgers, they cleared out a ton of money and could have signed him.
Yep.
If he wanted to be on the Phillies, they already had the space.
Yep.
If he wanted to be in Atlanta, they had all the space in the world. If he wanted to go back to the Nationals, they would have already done it.
They offered him, what, 10 over 300 or 400?
But no, $300 million over 10 years, no early terminations, though. So was it really a good offer? Yeah, from their end it was. I mean, if I'm cutting a $300 million check, I probably don't want any early opt-outs either.
Okay.
I get it. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I want him on the Cubs. I think that's where he ends up. But I think the Cubs are going to have to recognize that they have to make some moves. And I'm okay with it being something like the one rumor that's floating out there. That is Hayward and Happ for, was it the closer from San Francisco?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I can't think.
Mark Melancon or...
Okay.
You know... I know the Cubs don't want to give up 2 outfielders in one trade, but A, it gives you another arm for your bullpen.
Yep.
And there's supposed to be some younger left-hander coming back as well in the rumored offering. I don't know how real it is. You know how that stuff is this time of year. There's all kinds of rumors out there. But, yeah.
Well, I might be in the same spot you are with the blindness, but just for ever since I heard they had Theo has the handshake agreement with him that he will not accept a contract until he talks to him for one last time. makes me believe there's a lot more in that Cubs signing than not signing.
Well, again, if you're going to want to, get rid of something like Chatwood or Hayward, it's going to cost you one of these young pieces. Eventually, this is my problem, is I know better than to assume Team Theo will do this, because they've done it at Boston too. They fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy way too much. They start to believe that their own guys will turn it around and be better than they were. And eventually they'll be exactly who they thought they were. And they're so afraid of them becoming who they thought they were somewhere else that they end up hanging on to them too long. And it's why, if you really look at it, Epstein never won 2 championships in Boston with the same core group. So, when Cubs fans started thinking that this was going to be different, I don't know why. Because young players surge and fade. They don't necessarily hit a baseline. And when you start to have, when you see a guy have a great early career here, like Bryant or Schwarber, and then they regress some, now you have an ownership that sees, or executive front office team that sees them as those guys at their peak, not necessarily the guys who have regressed some.
Right.
Or, or may stagnate to there. They always think they'll get back to that. Not necessarily.
I think if you're 2 young guys on the Cubs, the 2 you have are Rizzo and Baez at this point. That
Rizzo ain't that young. Rizzo's Rizzo.
25 only. He'll be 26.
Who?
Rizzo's only he was only 25 last year. They kept saying everybody in the infield was 25 or under, and that Rizzo was the oldest.
I think you're off by a couple years. I think he's like 28 or 29. Yeah, he got married over the weekend.
You're right, he's 29.
I
mean that whole Cub, everybody's 25 and under.
I think they were referencing like Happ and Baez and Russell and Bryant and Schwarber and that group. Okay. And they talk about that, and Almora and Contreras. Okay. I mean, eventually you have to understand, not all these guys are going to be them peak selves. You may have seen some of their peak seasons already. They're not necessarily going to be that person again. And unfortunately, they're not saying, they keep viewing these guys as they're going to be that guy again. That's why they don't want to trade any of them. Like, you got to trade some of them eventually.
Right.
You have too many outfielders already, technically. Particularly when you include Zobrist into that mix. And Bodie, you have 6 potential outfielders right now. You can't have 6 potential outfielders with the way you need your bullpen built for modern baseball. So yeah, I think he ends up a Cub, but if they don't move any money, I don't see it happening. So, in which case, then I think he ends up a Dodger.
Okay.
Was that the double question?
That was the double question because it's January and nobody's signed yet, so.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs have really signed nobody except one backup utility middle infielder.
Right. And a pitcher that's coming off Tommy John.
Well, I don't count those guys. Cubs sign one of those every year. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I think that was a plenty long enough episode there. Thanks for tuning in to the Off Base Sports. Subscribe, rate, review, share with your friends. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Satchel, CastBox, Spotify, Stitcher. It's on the Facebook fan page. Share it on my Twitter. It's also on my YouTube. Off Base Sports, or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and as I said, YouTube at JASONBANICKI. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Peace out.